Hello Simmers, welcome to Lelystad Airport in the Netherlands, a GA airport where we are with my newest addition to my virtual hangar, the RealSimGear Diamond DA40NG, which is quite a mouthful for such a small airplane, but it is a large airplane in terms of what it does. It is a beautiful model of the Diamond DA40. The systems are modeled to excellent detail, and it's a joy to fly. It really re-sparked my joy of GA flying in a desktop simulator. And that's quite something because most of my flights were airliners, but now the last week, bought this last week, it's been only the Diamond because I just keep getting back to it. It flies great, it has great systems, and it's just a joy to fly. And a joy to look at because the 3D modeling has been done to an exceptional standard. It's really, really great. If we take a look here, we can check under the hood. And as you can see, also the engine modeling has been done to great detail. Everything in 3D. It's just an incredible piece of work. I like it a lot. There's also this small inspection hatch that is modeled. We can open the passenger door, of course. Everything is animated, everything is modeled, the sounds are great. I love this little airplane. And to show my appreciation for this airplane, I decided to go for a short overland flight from Lelystad to Texel, which is an island on the north west of the Netherlands. So we'll start here in Lelystad. We'll take off. I expect to be using runway 5, and then we'll fly to Artip, make a left turn north of Lelystad over the Markermeer, over the lake to Enkos, then turn right and fly basically to Victor Papa 084, and then we'll fly an arrival into Texel Airport. If we look at the weather, Lelystad Airport 110 at 5 knots, the wind, clear visibility, no clouds. Temperature 6, QNH 1010, no significant change expected. Texel, VFR blue, overcast at 30,000 feet, so that's not going to bother us. 7 knot wind, heading 130, varying between 090 and 150. So if it is 090, it's going to be a runway 03 arrival. If it's more heading towards 150, it's going to be runway 21. So we really have to check the wind carefully when we get there. Clear visibility, so a good day to fly, especially with small GA airplanes. So that's exactly what we are going to do. Now, the one thing that is missing when you buy this package is an aircraft operations manual. But if you go online and you Google Diamond DA40NG AOM aircraft operation manual, you will find a website from Diamond itself, and you can download the complete PDF, the AOM as a complete PDF, all 326 pages. So I will be using that one. And from page 124 onwards, you have the normal operating procedures, and I will try to follow those as close as I possibly can. So let's see how that works out. So we just went over the MET, we went over the nav, so we have to look at the mass and the center of gravity. So if you go to the load manager, you can see that we have a pilot and a co-pilot. We don't have passengers. If you add passenger weight, you will see a passenger appear. You will also see how the attitude of the plane changes with the weight of that passenger. So center of gravity, really, really important for the flyability. We don't use passengers. Let's say we are a student and an instructor, and we're going for our first overland. So there's a little bit of cargo, some bags, and let's say that we want a full load of fuel, just in case. I'll use the metric units. You can easily switch between metric and pounds. So like I said, the systems are modeled quite extensively, and what they did for 3 systems, they created these interactive diagrams, and I think I will leave them in the top of the screen so you can actually see what's happening when we flick certain switches in the cockpit. So I'll just put those on top here just for now. Once we are started and we start taxiing, I'll get rid of them. But let's look into the cockpit. Also in the cockpit, the modeling is done to an exceptional detail. Everything is modeled in 3D. Everything that can be moved is animated. Yeah, just great. Absolutely first class texturizing and animating. It's just an amazing, yeah, I said it before, an amazing piece of work. So let's continue with the normal operating procedures. The pre-flight inspection, MET, NAV, MES, and center of gravity are completed. And just for the record, if we look at the load manager, this is where we are. So we are approximately 1200 kilos. I'll work with that number for this flight. So 1200 it is. So let's say the airplane documents are complete and up to date. The electric master is off and the keys are out. The engine master is off. The photo switch is auto, and the photo switch is a switch where you can select which fuel pump you will use. The fuel valve is locked in the normal position. The front canopy and rear door are clean and undamaged. Electrical equipment is off. Circuit breakers are all in. All circuit breakers are modeled, by the way. The power lever, check for free motion. And make sure it's in the idle position, which it is. So the electric master can now be switched on, so press on the key. And also the sounds in this airplane are an incredible, nice piece of work. And set the electric master on, and we'll wait for the power-up sequence for the GNS 1000 suite. Now what you also saw is when as soon as I flick the switch on, you can see these lines turning green here. Which is just, yeah, you can really see the flow of the electricity through the systems, which is really cool. Now we loaded the fuel, full load, so it is indicating 14 gallons. Should be a little bit more, but there's a note in the AOM. If the fuel quantity indicator reads 14 gallons, the correct fuel quantity must be determined with the fuel quantity measuring device. If this measurement is not carried out, the fuel quantity available for flight planning is 14 gallons. So we'll plan with 14 gallons, but that is plenty because the flight is about 50 nautical miles, which is well within the operating range of this little airplane. So continuing, we'll make sure that the position lights and the strobe lights are off. The taxi and the landing lights are off. Then we can set the electric master off and watch what happens in the green. You can see that it disappears like that. We check for foreign objects, set the control and the trim, so we can set the trim for the takeoff position already. And the emergency eggs and the baggage are stowed and secured. Now, in the real world, you will now start your walk around the airplane. I am not going to do that because it's taking far too much time for this video. It is covered in great detail in the AOM where you have to look at which position of the airplane. So you can do it, but for this video I decided to skip it. So we'll just pretend we have done the walk around. I switched off all failures, so we should be all right. So we can continue with the before starting engine flow. So the pre-flight inspection is completed. We can adjust the rudder pedals by switching on the engine master. And there's the electricity again. It goes really quick, but you can actually see it move through the system, which I really like. And we can adjust the pedals. Also modeled, animated, and the sounds are incredibly nice. So the passengers, we don't have them, but let's say they are instructed. Safety harness is fastened, rear door was closed and locked. Was it? Yes, it was. So let's close the canopy. There we are. Make sure that the parking brake is set. We'll check for free movement on the flight controls. So down, up, left, right, rudder left, right. And the brakes, so that is checked. By the way, it is a feet-on pedal airplane, so you have to coordinate all your turns throughout the flight. Trim wheel was set to takeoff. Power lever is set to idle. Alternate air is closed. The photo switch is auto. Fuel pumps are off. Avionic master is off. Electric master is on. And power-up sequence is completed. Indications are all normal. So we can now proceed. We'll switch the strobe lights on. We can switch the engine master on. Now you can see that the fuel pump starts working, and when you switch the photo switch, you will alternate between the fuel pumps. So now we are on Bravo. We can also set it to Alpha. You can see that this line and the color is changing when you do that. So the enunciations are normal. We have oil pressure. Oh, the pitot heat should be off. There it is, at least for this stage of the flight. We can turn the start key to start and just listen to the sound. Really, really nice. Now, if you think the engine sounds are a bit too loud within the cabin, you can plug in your headset and use noise cancellation in here by scrolling your middle mouse button. I like to hear something but not as loud, so this is perfect. And we'll check for the engine indications. So the fuel temp is in the green. We have the quantity checked. The coolant temperature, it's still a bit on the low side, it will rise. Oil pressure is in the green, oil temperature is rising slowly. It has to be in the green before takeoff. If you look at the system, the volts, the amps, the gearbox temperature is still a bit low. This is the coolant temperature, this is the gearbox temperature, I'm sorry. And here's the fuel flow. And one thing I don't like is that so far I haven't been able to switch this from gallons to liters or kilos. That would be rather nice. So if anyone knows whether that's possible, and if so, how, then please tell me how that works in the comments below. So with the engine started, we'll make sure that all the circuit breakers are in, which they are. And we'll verify that we are in idle RPM, and that should be in a range of 710 RPM plus or minus 30, so between 680 and 740 RPMs. We are at 690 RPM, so that is excellent. Now before we proceed with the taxiing, of course we have to set some instruments. We have to load our flight plan. So if we take a look in the sim, QNH is 1010. So that's 1010. set, and we can set our transponder code. We are VFR, and let's say we are on the ground for now. And of course we have to load our flight plan, so let's start by doing that first. So flight plan, we are in Lelystad. Press this button to get the cursor in there, and then with the lower part you can move to the next field, and with the narrow part you can set the next waypoint. So our first waypoint will be RTIP. So RTIP, close to the airport, that's correct. Press enter twice to put it in there. After RTIP we'll fly to ENCOS. Enter, and then it is on to, I thought it was Victor Papa. Let me just check that real quick in my nav. It's Victor Papa 084. So Victor Papa 084. There we are. Intersection in the Netherlands. And then the next one will be Texel Airport, which is Echo Hotel Tango X-Ray. So there we are, if we increase the range. Yep, that's the flight plan that we are looking for. So that is good, that is loaded. Let's leave that alone for now. So we can set the avionics master on. We can set the taxi light on. I want flaps for takeoff. So that is set. Pitot heat can be switched on. We set our flight instruments. The floodlight is not needed. Pitot heating is on. Strobe lights are on. Position lights, they can be switched on as well. So we have no autopilot annunciations, that is correct. So we can switch the autopilot on and then switch it off again and check for the autopilot tone. So on and off again. Yep, there was the tone. We set our altitude. I want to fly roughly 1300 feet. And the initial heading out of this airport is 045, which is set. So we'll set an electric trim test. That is also working. Takeoff position. And having done all this, we can see that the coolant temperature is really starting to get close to the green now. Oil temperature is rising. Should be in the green when we reach our takeoff intersection, and otherwise we just have to wait a little bit for it. I thought the coolant temperature should be 55 if I'm not mistaken. I am mistaking, it's just a little bit more than that. So anyway, you can see that the fuel is now being pumped out of the left tank. It's now slightly lower than the right tank. Just to demonstrate what's indicated in the flow, if I switch the fuel transfer on, you can see this turning green. You can see that there's fuel being pumped from right to left. And when I switch it off again, goes back to normal. So with these systems you get a really good idea of what's happening within your airplane. So the electric system is normal. What you can do basically is check if you switch the essential bus on. You can see that it trips the circuits to certain bugs. So this screen goes black. So now let's switch this off. Wait for this screen to initialize again. And I'll get rid of these little screens here. And then we are ready to taxi to runway 5 here in Lelystad. Now taxiing is also something that requires some getting used to, because there's no nose wheel steering installed. So it's basically like a shopping cart wheel. And you have to push the airplane in the direction where you want to, using a combination of your differential brakes and your rudder. So what we'll do is we'll release the parking brake. And first we'll power up slightly, get some movement, and do the brake test. So the brakes are working. And we'll taxi out. Now the differential brakes are quite sensitive. So I might have to play around with the sensitivity setting on that axis. But for now, we'll just proceed to runway 5. I think we're going to use intersection Sierra 5. Now this is Sierra 1, so we have some backtracking ahead of us. And we can use that to further warm up the coolant and the oil temperature, and watch for these indications to also turn green or normal. Let's go back to the yellow line. It's just constant small inputs on the differential brakes to keep the airplane going in the direction where you want it to go. Now the coolant temperature is now okay. Let me just slow down a little bit. Fuel pumps are off, and once we are holding short at Sierra 5, we'll proceed with the before takeoff flows. So there's Sierra 4. Alright, so we are holding short. We'll set the parking brake, engine back to idle. Parking brake set. Safety harness was fastened, the rear door was closed and locked, front canopy is closed and locked. So for the engine we still have the oil temperature that is now almost in the green. Power lever is set to idle, circuit breakers are all still pushed in. The trim is still set to takeoff. Oil temperature is now in the green, so that's good. The fuel valve is also normal. Flaps are set to takeoff. Flight controls are still unrestricted, free movement throughout the airplane, throughout the controls. The pitot heating is on. We can switch the landing light on. And now we can run the ECU fuel pump test sequence, which is the ECU test button that you'll find here. So what you are expecting to see is ECU AB fill or ECU AB indicators illuminate on the PFD. If they do not, there is a malfunction and you have to terminate your flight preparation, return and figure out what is wrong. And the entire test procedure must be completed without any error. So what you expect to see what is required at least is that the engine oil and the gearbox temperature should be in the green. Well, we already established that that is the case, so that is good. So the power lever is idle, the propeller RPM should be below 1000, which it is. The fuel pumps should be off, and the photo switch should be auto, which they are. Now, all engine temperatures are also in the green. The parking brake is set, and now we can press and hold the ECU test button. And then it will start up an automated sequence. The propeller RPM will increase to above 1900 RPM. Then there will be a slight drop in RPM. Then it will recover to 1900. Then it will go back to idle. Then the ECU switches back to the other ECU channel and the sequence is repeated. At the end of the test, the control of the engine is returned to the initially active ECU channel. Slight shake of the engine may occur during ECU switching. So what I'll do is I'll throw up the fuel system. And we'll press and hold this button. We'll verify that this goes to 1900, slightly back, then up to 1900, slightly back, then back to idle. And then it repeats that with a different valve, I think. So let's just see what happens in this system when we do that. So press and hold the test button. There we go. 1900, slightly back, back up to 1900, back to idle. Different pump. Up to 1900, slightly back, back up to 1900. Back to idle and switch back to pump Bravo. When we release the button it is pushed. Yeah, so that test is completed. There's no warnings here. And what we can also do is check the folder switch. So we'll go back to the fuel system. So we go Bravo, that's good. Alpha is good, and Auto is good. Then we have the available power check. So we have to move the power lever to the max position, hold it there for 10 seconds, and check for normal indications on the RPM and the load. The RPM should stabilize between 2200 and 2300 RPMs. minimal 2100 RPMs, and the load indicator should stabilize between 88 or 100%. So let's go with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have load 100, RPM 2300, so that is good. So power lever back to idle, engine instruments are all in the green range, the fuel pump can be switched on, and we can release the parking brake. We can set our transponder to on. And then we'll continue with the takeoff flow. So transponder is on, and let's line up with the runway first. So line up runway 5, so that's a right turn onto the runway. So there we are. Elevator is neutral, rudder for maintaining direction. We are 1200 kilos, so we expect to rotate at 65 knots indicated airspeed with an initial climb of 70 knots. So let's go with that. So without further ado, max takeoff. So 65, pull up. So 70 knots. And what we can do is we can set the flight director on for the nav, which is now GPS. So we can fly to the left to fly directly to RTIP. And this thing just flies so beautiful on manual control. Okay, so we are on max power for 2 minutes. So let's reduce that to approximately 92% for the climb out speed. Let's lower the nose, switch the landing light off, fuel pump off. So we'll retract the flaps and increase the speeds. About 88 knots is what we are looking for at this stage. And we'll start to level off. A little bit of nose down trim. And what I'll do now is I'll switch on the autopilot. Just manually go down to 1300s. We'll come back on the power lever to about 75% for the cruise. That's 75% load. and engage the autopilots. So at 1300 feet. Come back a little bit on the power because we are quite high on our speed right now. So 1300 feet. Airplane is now following the GPS. And we'll go to about 69% load. So flaps are up, power lever 69%. And always regularly check your fuel balance and use the fuel transfer switch when left is going too far to the left compared to the right fuel tank. So let's wave to Lelystad. Just look at this beautiful little airplane. Scenery that you're looking at, by the way, is Ortho 4XP Zoom Level 17 Google tile combined with X-World Europe. And I disabled the forest layer in X-World Europe and engaged Global Forest V2 by OrbX. And for the clouds, they are enhanced with Visual XP Basic. I only use the clouds, not the ozone. But it's a nice approximation of the real world. So these are called the Marker Wadden, artificial made islands that are now basically a bird sanctuary. I don't know why I have these black flickering things here below me. So we are nice and stable, flying towards Enkos, which is named after the town of Enkhuizen, which lies over there, which is a really old city. Was very rich during the, I think the late Middle Ages. They used, they had a large fisherman fleet, and they used to go for herring, which is a sort of fish, a species of fish I must say, and the city became really rich with that trade somewhere during the 16th, 17th century. And it's not too big, it's a small city, but it still has a very nice historical inner city. And there's a large museum called the Zuiderzee Museum, which is really worth a visit. I keep getting these black flickering things. I think they came with the latest NVIDIA update, so I'm not really sure what they are, whether it's X-Plane or NVIDIA, but it's not what it's supposed to be. Just look at this, such a beautiful little airplane. We can switch off the taxi light, by the way. This dike that you'll see here it was late there. There's now a road over it connecting Lelystad to Enkhuizen, so you can go there by car. But the initial idea was to also drain this lake, make it a large polder as well. As far as I know, there are no plans for that right now, especially since the last couple of years were spent on creating that bird sanctuary, the Markerwadden. So I highly doubt whether they are even allowed to drain this lake nowadays, with a nature reserve being in there. Anyway, this is the second leg of our journey from Artip to Enkhuizen, and we are already very close to Enkhuizen. And then it's a little bit longer than the previous leg to Victor Papa 084, but we should be there rather quickly. So here is the town of, I think this is Stedebroek or Bovenkarspel. Yeah, it's Bovenkarspel. I had some relatives living here in the past. So we drove this road. They were somewhere down there. But anyway. So this is the province of North Holland. Quite a rural area. Many of the farms, they grow the famous tulips. So let's take a look at our fuel consumption. Still going strong. Down there is the town of Medemblik, and over our shoulder there is Hoorn. In between Hoorn and Medemblik there is an historical steam tram or steam train. Not really sure which of the two it is, but it's quite nice to take a ride on that. We did it once with the entire family, that was fun. Another plugin that I'm using, by the way, is called X-Roads. It's a really small plugin, but what it does, it removes the autogen roads from the ortho, except for highways. Only highways will have autogen roads, because the autogen roads, they are, well, they're not too good in X-Plane, in my humble opinion. They look really cartoonish. And when you use the X-Roads plugin, it's really small. You can download it for free. It will remove it from all the secondary roads, streets whatsoever. So it gives a much more realistic appearance of the ortho tiles, in my humble opinion. So that's why I keep using it. I like it. So here's that town of Medemblik. And now we are coming to what is called the Wieringermeer. That's actually quite an interesting piece of history, because if you look at the Netherlands, these are all polders, and this, the Wieringermeer, where we are flying towards now, was basically a practice run for the big polders that are in here. So what they did just before World War II, they dried this part. Then after World War II, they dried the eastern part of this island, and then later they dried this one. But before they tried this, they did a test run creating the Wieringermeer, which is the piece of land that we are flying over right now. So this is also a polder, and you can actually see that quite well in the landscape. Let me see if I can get it in an external view. That's not really clear now. If you're flying higher, it's very clear, but you have like these large rectangular fields. They are very characteristic for boulders with sea clay. And when we flew close to Enkhuizen, you had these small, narrow patches of land with a lot of water in between. And that's because that soil contains mainly of peat, which has very high groundwater levels. But these large rectangular fields, you also see them around Lelystad airport. They are an indication that you are flying over a boulder that consists mainly of sea clay, because they were drained later on, and the farms were already designed for mechanical agriculture. So farmers could use machines more efficiently in large rectangular fields instead of all sorts of small, narrow fields. And because this is a boulder, the level of the groundwater is regulated through pumps. So it's not an issue as with the peat areas. But anyway, we are approaching what is called Wieringerwerf. And after that, we already start to cross the sea towards Texel. So what I'll do is I'll see if I can bring up Texel on the moving map already. Yes, we can. And see what the weather information is for Texel. So the wind is 128 at 17, so that's quite significant wind. Much more than what was derived. Oh, now it's 10 knots in here. But it's still prevailing to land on runway 3. It should be cross slightly from the front. So let's plan for runway 3. Let's see if we can bring that in the So Texel, procedure, select approach, enter. There are no approaches, so we can clear it. So we'll just have to go visual, no GPS approaches whatsoever. Which is fun. And this is the starting of the Afsluitdijk, which is a dike that connects the province of North Holland with the province of Friesland. And that was the first step in creating those large boulders that I just showed you, that artificial island in the middle of the Netherlands. Because, well, before that, this dike was put into place, this was just sea. And when they built the dike, they changed the sea into a lake, which was far better controllable to lay the dikes for the big boulders. Now if we look to our left, down here is Den Helder, which is the main port for the Royal Dutch Navy. And there's also an airfield called De Kooi, where a lot of the helicopters for the oil rigs on the North Sea are stationed. And I believe also some Navy helicopters. It used to be a naval air station, but nowadays it's more widely used by also commercial operators that fly the staff of the oil rigs to and from the oil rigs. So we are now within the controlled region of the Kooi airfield. Once we are over Victor Papa 084, we'll disengage the the autopilot and we'll fly manually into Texel Airport. I couldn't find the official procedures into the airport. It's not included in Navigraph. So I'm just improvising a landing. So if you are a real-world GA pilot in the Netherlands or anywhere and you've flown into Texel and you see me make mistakes in the arrival route for Texel, please be mild with me. Now we aren't flying long enough for a fuel imbalance to occur, so we don't have to use the fuel transfer pump for now. I reckon that the flashes are mainly over water, so there's a problem with the water, I guess. So for the descent, it's basically power lever, airspeed, trim, it should be as required, and you have to monitor the annunciations and the engine indications. Well, the engine indications, everything is still in the green. All our electrics are still okay, and so is the fuel, so nothing to worry about there. And there's the island of Texel right ahead of us. Den Helder, that's also where the ferry to Texel departs from. There's always a lot of Germans on holiday here, but also a lot of Dutch people. So it's really a popular summer holiday destination in the Netherlands. So let's go already over to the approach flow. So the backrest should be adjusted, the harness is fastened, controls are free. We can set the landing light on already, as well as the taxi light. We can switch the fuel pumps on. Parking brake is released and the trim is as required. So what we are looking for is approximately 75 knots, 75, 76 knots with takeoff flaps, and then for landing flaps it's roughly between 72 and 76, so let's say 75 knots. And on landing, yeah, so let's try to stick to 75 knots for landing. Now Victor Papa is already coming up, so we'll just fly a little circle here over the southern part of the island to lose some speed. I will change to heading and go back on the power lever to lose speed. And let's just turn left here. The airfield is located somewhere over here. It's a bit in the center of the island. It has a grass runway, so that makes it a bit harder to to recognize. So we'll switch the autopilot off, and I also switch the flight director off, and we'll just fly this thing manually. So we are looking at 75 knots for landing. Let's go to the approach flaps. A little bit of nose down trim. So we're now circling around the Burg, Den Burg op Texel. Then we'll have to fly a right-hand turn to align ourselves with the runway. Only problem is I can't see it. Oh, there it is. Yep, runway is in sight. So, landing flaps. And adding a little bit of power. There's this pretty strong crosswind, so I really have to put in the rudder to the right to prevent me from being blown away from the runway. And with these little GA airplanes, it's where X-Plane really shines in terms of the flight dynamics. So I'm slightly above 75 knots, that's perfectly alright with me. Let's put some aileron into the wind. Because with this hard wind, if we suddenly have a drop in the wind speed, I don't want to be at my stall speed immediately, so I'm flying a little bit over 75 knots here. And here we are. Welcome to Texel. There we go. So let's backtrack this runway a little bit. Because there are the airport buildings. This wind. Okay, so flaps up. Switch the avionics master off, we don't need the autopilot anymore. We don't have any planes arriving here, so let's go to the right here, vacate this runway. So landing lights off. Fuel pump can be switched off. quite stubborn on the ground. It really wants to go its own way, really fighting with the keeping the airplane on the my desired taxi way. So I have to make this right turn here. Let's just park here in front of the hangar. So parking brake set. Okay, so now we have to set the engine load to 10%. I leave that running there for 1 minute, so 26:50. Pitot heat can be switched off. Flaps are up, fuel pumps are off. Parking brake is set. We have to check for the engine indications, which are all normal. We can set the transponder to standby. And engine back to idle. And we'll switch the engine master off. We switch the strobe and position lights off. And then we can switch the electric master off as well. Open the canopy. And that completes our flight. Welcome to Texel. Hope you liked this video. Hope I gave you a good impression of what this little airplane has in store. It's a beautiful training airplane because it has the GPS, the GNS 1000 suite. It's a really nice basic trainer. It's a nice instrument rating trainer. So yeah, to be recommended wholeheartedly. I really like this airplane. Like I said at the beginning, it re-sparked my love for GA flying on a desktop sim. And well, that's the only thing I can say. Go get it. It's beautiful. xaviation.com. About $55, I thought it was. Let me just check that real quick for you guys. Aircraft. Where it is. Yeah, $55 on xaviation.com. An amazing little airplane, well worth the money. You won't regret it. So let's put some chocks, some cones, inlet cover, stall cover, pitot cover, wingtip cover. And with this wind, let's tire down. So this airplane is now parked. We can enjoy the island, rent a bike, buy some ice cream, and then fly back later today. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any tips, tricks, comments whatsoever, please leave them in the comment section below. As usual, please do so in a respectful manner. If you saw me make mistakes, please point them out. Tell me what I did wrong, how to do it right, so everyone can learn from it in the comment section. I don't monetize my videos, so it's all about learning. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all again another day on another video. Thank you for watching, and bye bye.